Being Black in America comes with its challenges. However, we understand that enlightenment through education is the oppressor's worst fear. By bridging the gap between academia and the people, our purpose is to equip you with knowledge that breaks down barriers during your journey towards truth and freedom. Welcome to the Black and Highly Dangerous Podcast.
Yo, Dad, what's up? How's the past week been?
The past week was super duper busy. John and I went to Philadelphia for our first house hunting visit. And it seems like it'll also be our last house hunting visit because, we are tired, but we were able to find a lot of cool places. And we think we pretty much settled on two. And we'll ultimately decide, based on where John gets his job, because we don't want the commute to be too crazy.
Mm-hmm. So is it actual houses that you found or just general areas you're looking to try to move into?
So it was areas. We did end up meeting up with our realtor who showed us one or two houses, but we're actually likely going to rent right off the bat just because my position is 3 years. Don't know how long I'll be there. And deciding on having a rental property in Philadelphia. I mean, that's a lot if you're not from the area. So we don't know if it actually makes sense to buy. But what we did was found a townhome in one area that's closer to the city. And then we found some really nice, luxurious apartments. I'm like, oh, wow, are we at a resort? That's further out in the suburbs. And so we'll probably choose one of those options depending on where he gets his job.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's good. That's good that y'all were able to take that trip and then come away with something. Because, house hunting, apartment hunting, whatever it is, moving, that's always a big decision, especially going to a new area. So you want to get a feel, you want to get the vibes. And it's a lot of just thinking and stress and all that kind of stuff. So once you settle on some things, it's just a big weight off your shoulders. So I know that's a good feeling because that house buying process or just house hunting process is grueling at times.
It is. And so we got there Tuesday and it was late, but we stayed through Saturday, every single day. It was oh my goodness. We went to Cherry Hill, New Jersey. We went just driving, ripping and running all over. So you can just imagine how tiring it was. But it did allow us to get a feel for the entire city because we went to just about every area that you could possibly move to. And one thing that I took away, no offense to my Philly people. I love y'all, but y'all some crazy drivers a little bit. It's because one thing I noticed is there are so many offshoots, you'll be in one lane and you think you're in the right lane, but that's about to end. And so everybody is just constantly merging. And some people use blinkers, some people don't. You're turning curves and you need to be in one lane because you end up having to go right. And it's just so weird because it's everybody is coming at the same time and you just kind of got to drive slow to make sure y'all don't all hit each other. And I'm this is weird.
Welcome to the Northeast. Jersey, New York, Philly, all these places is like that. It's wild drivers. So you definitely have to have your defensive driving skills on point. I would say that's the only perk. One of the only perks I enjoyed about living in Indiana, that was probably one of the most peaceful driving times of my life.
Yes. I can't tell you the last time I was in traffic until we went to Philly, and it took 50 minutes to get, from one place to the other. And I'm my goodness, I don't know how people do this every day.
I don't know how they do it every day either. It's a lot. Even for where me and Kristen, where we lived in Jersey, where we just moved and bought a house. It's night and day because it was very congested where we used to live in traffic all the time. And now in this kind of suburban area, the streets are clear. You can get around easier. And it's just this is what life is supposed to be like. Yeah. Not a 50-minute drive when you're just trying to go down the street. So yeah.
Yes. I maxed out at 30, over 30. And it's too much.
You turn around, it's not worth it. It's funny. Well, that's good. That's good to hear then. That's good to hear.
How are you?
I've been good. Kind of like I mentioned you off air, just this is my last week of classes this week, and then next week is finals, and then summer vacation. So I am looking forward to just powering through these next 2 weeks, and then having my dose of freedom 3 months. And it's like we mentioned already before in the podcast, this summer is going to feel better because I'll be fully vaccinated, and we could kind of go back outside again and see family and do this kind of stuff. So I'm really just looking forward to a relaxing summer and refreshing.
Yeah.
Especially after this past year we just had.
Yes. It's also my last week. So looking forward to the same thing. And I don't want to say have my life back, but when you aren't teaching, it's just a weight off your chest a bit.
Yeah. That's why I said sometimes, we said this before, I sometimes envy folks who have 9 to 5s, because like, again, when you're teaching, you're in academia, it's like you're always kind of, thinking, because you got class and it's like content, readings, writings, paper, whatever it is, it's just always kind of on the go. And I think our minds like to have that break, that refreshing break. I'm not worried about that stuff, because it's a big weight off your shoulder. I don't have to worry about class this week. And you can kind of do what you want to do. So almost there. So shout out to all the other academics in the same position as us, just power through. We're almost there and can have an enjoyable summer.
Yes.
But okay. This episode is the last episode of the month, so Daph and I will be just covering some of the major current events that have transpired this past month, or especially within these past couple of weeks, that are definitely worth mentioning. So we'll, just like to dedicate time for us to just go into some depth about things that we saw and kind of our vibes about it. Before we get into some Oh Lord news, just want to remind everyone that we do have a Patreon account. Patreon.com/BHD podcast. So you can look at the tiers on there and support in whichever way you can. We all appreciate that as we continue to try to grow this platform. If you can't or don't feel like giving any money, that's fine. There are free ways you can still support us, and that's by leaving a comment or reviewing us on iTunes. The more people that do that, it works with the algorithms where more people can find us. So we really appreciate when folks, take the time just to, pause this episode right now and go ahead, drop a review and rating, because that really, really helps us out with the algorithm. So we appreciate that. All right, so let's get into some Oh Lord news, and then we'll talk about some of the major topics of the month. Hello, and welcome to BHD News, where we give you the most current and eye-opening Oh Lord news of the week. Join us as we present news that'll make you want to say,
Okay. So I think we've all, had a dream once or twice in our lives where we opened up our bank account, we looked at the statement, and there were millions of dollars in it. Have you ever had that?
Only in my dreams, Daph. Only in my dreams.
Well, yeah. Well, that actually happened to a New Orleans woman who, was supposed to have $82 deposited into her account. But what actually happened is the bank had deposited $1.2 million.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Well, here's where the situation gets tricky. They immediately tried to stop it. However, once they figured out the error and tried to do it, they saw that the funds were unavailable. And that is because the woman, I don't know, she took them out. She bought a house. She bought a $72,000 SUV. And now she faces up to 10 years in prison for fraud.
Oh, wow. Wow. Is that I guess that's weird to be convicted of that. If it's the bank error and you're putting all this money in someone's account and then they spend it, is that really fraud? Did I willingly go out and, dupe somebody to give me this money? Or is it just your clerical error, a massive clerical error that caused that? But for her to be facing criminal charges, I don't know if that's all the way fair.
Yeah, well, so the bank said that in their agreement, like that you sign, and people just be signing stuff and don't read it, that if there's like an overpayment, it is supposed to be returned.
Okay.
So yeah, and according to the bank, they have been trying to call the woman, text the woman, and she just didn't see it for him. She just, she was like, I don't know y'all no more. So that's also a part of the issue. They did try to resolve it, and then they ended up, what's crazy is that this woman worked as a 911 operator. And of course, she has been since fired, but she works for the law.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, maybe I need to pay them dispatchers a little bit more money then.
Yeah, maybe so. But I guess good luck to her.
Good luck. Good luck.
Speaking of criminal charges, I'm pretty sure that in our lives, we've forgotten to return maybe a book to the library. When video stores were open, maybe you forgot to return a DVD or VHS.
Yes.
Okay. Well, one woman realized that not only had she forgot to return a VHS tape after 2 decades, but when she went to the DMV to try to change her name, she realized that there was a felony warrant out for her arrest for the video.
What?
Yes. And so although the Oklahoma prosecutors are going to drop the charges, yes, there was a warrant that had been issued back in 2000. And I guess she had just never gotten pulled over or anything.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But it was a Sabrina the Teenage Witch VHS tape.
Oh, my God. That is funny.
She was just like, I don't even remember renting that. So be careful out here, y'all.
I didn't know it can go that far for not recording returning one VHS.
Yeah, I would think that it would become a civil issue, not a criminal issue.
Yeah. That's weird. But that's funny though. Yeah, them days of returning videos and going to the store. I actually kind of missed those a little bit. Those were always kind of fun. When the parents would take us to Blockbuster or something like that, whatever rental store, and we would look and see what movies we wanted to get and be excited to go home and watch them. Yeah.
Hoping that it's some extra behind the, because they would always have the cover, and then behind it you would hope there's some DVDs or VHS left and everybody didn't rent it all.
Especially when it was something new, trying to get there early and catching it for the weekend. Those are good vibes, good feelings. And, we'll have those again because of streaming and stuff. Now everything is just right on our tablets, phones, and TVs. But that's something I guess these new generations won't experience. Not sure that they care, but I know that was, special to us.
Yeah, even Redbox has pretty much become obsolete.
Yeah, Redbox was definitely big while we were in school, at least, undergrad and graduate school for sure. That was always fun to go find a movie in there and catch those. But yeah, I haven't seen the physical. I don't even have a DVD player hooked up in my house right now when I think about it. So that's how long it's been since I even thought about trying to get one of those kind of instruments to watch a film.
Instruments, that's so funny. I think when because we still have some DVDs, but I think we watch it on the game system.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I guess I have that. That would count. But yeah, the traditional DVD player, nah. And I definitely don't have a VHS player. So if I even had a VHS, I wouldn't even know what to do with those.
Yeah. Okay, so for this, I won't say it's the last, but it's before we get into some more serious, oh Lord news. These people aren't the only people that owe money. The city of Albuquerque has just referred the Trump campaign to a collection agency because the Trump campaign allegedly owes the city about $200,000 from a presidential rally that was held in 2019 that they never paid the expenses for.
Oh wow! So Trump, was he dining and dashing? In Albuquerque.
So it's mostly for the security costs, blocking off parts of downtown, paying police officers overtime, covering the paid time off expenses of city workers who had to stay home, etc. during the visit. But it's just funny. I don't owe y'all nothing.
The man skipped on his bill. Albuquerque, you have to pay, bro.
But I mean, that's kind of normal. Isn't that what he's known for, skipping out on bills?
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's exactly what he's known for. So we shouldn't be surprised at these old Trump tactics. Hopefully Albuquerque get that money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, for this last one, and I guess that'll lead us into some of our bigger discussions, is of course we, have been watching the Derek Chauvin trial. And there were comments immediately after it was over by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who, for whatever reason, decided to say the following words. Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice.
I couldn't believe she said that.
This man did not sacrifice his life. A sacrifice implies that you did something willingly, that you made the decision. Like, no, that decision was made for him. Like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. When we hear sacrifice, we hear those stories when somebody is protecting, a young child from a crazy incident. That's sacrificing in those situations. But this was, he was a victim of a homicide. And that is definitely not sacrificing. And I always find it extremely weird that folks like Nancy Pelosi and others who have spent decades in public service and public speaking to still make these kind of like egregious errors when speaking about these kind of things. It's like all you have to do is think a little bit more before you use these words, and you still decided to use them. So it's like, come on now, it's crazy.
Yeah. But I think she speaking to the Congressional Black Caucus, actually.
I believe so.
Or like in front of them, like it's kind of like foot and mouth. And they're like, I'm looking at the picture now, and like all these Black people standing behind her as she thanks him for sacrificing his life. Get your life together, Pelosi. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that can lead us into talking about the trial. Derek Chauvin, who was on trial for killing George Floyd. He was the officer who had the knee on George Floyd's neck, and it was about 3 weeks this trial was happening. And then we finally reached a verdict this past week in which Derek Chauvin was found guilty on all 3 charges: manslaughter, 3rd degree, and 2nd degree. I don't think we'll hear about his sentencing until June, I think I recently saw. But that was one of the biggest news stories of this month, naturally, because the week has been the trial has been going on for almost a whole month. And then this past week, actually reaching a verdict. So what are your overall thoughts and feelings, Daph, about the verdict of Derek Chauvin?
I was honestly surprised that it was like all 3 counts. I was actually at the airport when John, I guess, had got a news alert to say the jury is back in. And like my stomach and my heart, they just dropped. And I was just like, oh, goodness. But, it took a while for them to actually get back in. So, that was our first flight. And by the time that was our second flight. We're about to get into Philly. And by the time we landed, the verdict had come back in. And it was just like really surprising. A few people in the airport actually clapped. So that was interesting. What's crazy is when they first announced that the jury had reached a decision, we were sitting by a couple who appeared white, but they were speaking a different language. And all I heard was guilty, but then I heard they were speaking in a different language, and I heard like O.J. Simpson, and I'm like, what is going on? That was the only word I recognized. O.J. Simpson. I was just like, oh Lord.
That's funny.
I was just like, I couldn't tell because at first it sounded like they were mentioning something about like, guilty or something like should be guilty. That's what I thought. And then they were talking about O.J. Simpson. So I'm like, I don't know what's going over there, but let me stop listening.
That is funny.
Yeah. But what about you?
Yeah, I was consulting, virtually. And so I saw the alert come on my phone saying, oh, the jury has reached a verdict. And I was like, oh boy, okay. So I was like, I hope the timing of this is when I'm not having to like speak or do anything. And luckily it wasn't. When they came out, somebody else was giving a presentation. So I kind of just like turned off my camera and went downstairs to go watch. Cause I was like, I cannot, it really doesn't matter what I'm doing. I cannot miss this. It's a a big thing we've all been waiting for, and a big moment in our histories and presently, but a big moment it will be in history. So I wanted to go see it for myself and hear it. So like many Black folks, we were a lot of suspense, a lot of anxiety. Like, okay, what are they going to say? And then after the judge read those verdicts out of guilty on all three, it was like, yes, good. Which I think a lot of folks felt. But then it's also after you have those kind of feelings, it was like, damn, like is this really what I wanted, right? Yes, we wanted him to be guilty, but, I think most folks would agree that we'd rather George Floyd's and other folks like George Floyd's to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that kind of like, catch-22 in that sense of being happy and seeing that, this officer is paying for his actions, but yet, we shouldn't even have gotten to this point,
Yeah. That's what I noticed, that it was both relief as well as a sense of still being dissatisfied from a lot of people. Is like, you think that this is what you want, but you realize that it's not really justice. A lot of people, talked about the difference between justice and accountability, and how this is holding him accountable, but it's really not justice.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I saw that going around, I was like, yes, I like, when folks give us the words to kind of express how we feel, because it can be difficult at times. But yeah, I definitely am supportive of that approach of like, yes, we are happy for the accountability, but we still don't feel like it's justice. And I think those are two key distinctions that I think we can keep in mind from this point forward. Hopefully this sends a message to all the other Derek Chauvins out there that they can be held accountable for your actions. And they should be held accountable for your actions, because the use of force was excessive. Like I didn't think all three charges were going to stick. I for sure thought manslaughter would stick, and maybe third degree, but I was like, I don't think that second degree is going to stick at all. But to see that they all stuck says a lot. I think that this is why folks also always push for representation on the jury. There was 4 Black folks, 2 biracial folks, and 6 white folks. So half the jury were of color. And this is why it took 10 hours to deliberate, and they found that man guilty, and rightfully so. And I think that matters too. And I know folks have discussed that, but I definitely wanted to just mention that on the podcast that, and I think in my class, we talked about this in my race, crime, and punishment class. And there's like this stat of like, when there are at least 2 Black people on a jury, it's less likely that we see these kind of either hung juries or mistrials, or guilty people like these officers, et cetera, walking scot-free when there's just at least 2 on. So once I heard there were like 6, I'm like, oh, this is not good for Mr. Chauvin. And it turned out not to be. I always wish we can like see or hear what they're deliberating or what the points are. But that was a fairly quick turnaround. And once I saw it to be that quick, I was like, okay, I had assumption that he was going to be guilty on at least some of these.
Agreed. What was crazy to me beyond that is that any relief that people felt from the Derek Chauvin verdict was shortly lived, because at the same time, what was happening?
Yep, what was happening, right, with a 16-year-old teenager,
Ma'kiah Bryant, yes. And it was just like, I will be honest, I saw the headlines, but I had to actually take a day or two before I could even read about the story, because I was just like, this is so much. This is so much. Literally at the same time.
It was wild. But to me, this also paints the picture of being Black in America and the policing problem we see. That on one end, we finally received some form of justice, accountability for George Floyd. And in that very same moment, we see another life being taken at the hands of law enforcement. And so, immediately we had them highs, and they went right back down to these lows. We couldn't even enjoy that victory, that small victory we've had. It was tough. Like you, I saw the story, and I just kind of was just seeing the headlines. I didn't fully investigate it until about a day or so later. I was like, all right, let me see what's really going on here. But I just know I saw the headlines, people upset, protesting, the same night. but I didn't go into the details. I know the video came out, I think, that evening, but I didn't watch it till a day or so later. And yeah, that story is, again, another sad, alarming story. I know the details are still murky. I don't know what has come out as fact or not, but the general story is that someone had called the police over to where the area where Ma'kiah resided. And then when that law enforcement officer came, there was a fight going on between these teenagers or whomever, or just young women. And then Ma'kiah ran into the scene. She had a knife and looked like she was attacking or fighting someone else. And then the officer shot her 4 times. And then she died. I've heard a bunch of things about the story in the details. I'm not sure what is true or not. I know we're kind of still waiting on it. I'm not sure if you've heard of any details, Daph, that makes sense of what was happening there.
So yeah, not sure what's true, but one of the latest reports that I read from someone who spoke with the family of Ma'kiah Bryant at one of the memorials noted that for 3 days in a row, that these girls, one of them actually being a 28-year-old woman, allegedly, for 3 days had come to the home to try to fight her. According to this account, they were trying to fight her because allegedly the stepmom stated that she had been unruly. And I don't know if this was being as a way to tame her, but that is according to this one report. And that it was actually Ma'kiah's younger sister who made the 911 call. And that Ma'kiah had been in the house until her father came. And that's when she felt, I guess, brave enough to come outside to face whatever was happening. And then this is, what ultimately occurred. So, it's a sad situation. I know for me, one of the things that I put out is because if a 16-year-old is put in a place where they feel like they have to potentially defend themselves with a weapon, because she was at home and either way it go, this wasn't these other people, it wasn't their home. So a fight came in her direction. It seems like we can all agree with that. Whether she had to come out of the house or not, that's not what I'm going to debate. But the fact that she was put in this circumstance that day or multiple days means that the system failed her. To me, I look at it as the foster care system, the police, like every system, because a 16-year-old should not be in that situation, period. She was not being protected by someone, anyone. Like, who was protecting this 16-year-old child?
Yeah. I think that even though we've heard kind of different accounts, right? I mean, that last account you heard is one I've heard too. And before that, I know it was murky, but it seems like we're getting a little more clear what was happening. But I think, some of the consistent themes are that she was getting, agitated or getting attacked or whatever it is. Somebody was coming to her home, her property, to mess with her. And it seems that she was defending herself or fighting back. Now, all the details, I'm sure, will come out in the near future once we, folks investigate and get to the bottom line. And I know there's going to be probably some legal actions possibly pursued. But at the end of the day, 16. 16-year-olds fight. It's uncommon. But what's sad is, allegedly, if these women were grown women in their 20s and a 16-year-old, I can understand being fearful. And even when I saw the video and them fighting, right? I've seen fights before. Growing up, I've been in fights, and it just seemed that it was just a lot of adrenaline and emotion going. And that is typically happens in fights. Like, she didn't even notice the officer there, right? I mean, think about how kind of like emotionally driven you're just going. And I feel like, and I know there's been a lot of conversations about this, right? Like, again, we see this all the time, even when black folks are doing what they're supposed to be doing and listening to every command of the officer, we still die. But folks are still trying to justify her death, which again, I'm completely against. Like, she's 16-year-old. There should be other measures taken before the officer went straight to a gun. And we've seen this, right? We've seen officers de-escalate situations, peacefully take down people with knives, peacefully take down grown white men with assault rifles who just murdered tons of people. And so there's no way that you can't say there was no other option for this police officer to handle the situation. You could have maybe grabbed them. People say, other police officers say you could have tried pepper spray, taser, if you had that on you, before you went to the weapon to try to de-escalate, especially because you didn't even give yourself enough time to assess what was going on. He just arrived on the scene and then shot very shortly after without actually like seeing. And you can hear he was trying to figure out what's going on as soon as he pulled up, and he didn't even give himself or his brain enough time to clearly see what was going on. And so I think, yeah, it's just sad that in this moment of immediate response, implicit biases came out. We saw the actions and it led to Ma'kiah's death. And 16 years of life is just not enough, right? She has so much more life to live. And being a victim of the system, like you said earlier, makes this even worse.
I just, like you said, I hope that we get a clearer picture. Although, I don't know. I've just seen far too many people, like you said, try to justify what happened. Even Black people. And I'm just like, like some of the posts I've been seeing, I'm like, y'all out here wilding out. I hope that if those, if the accounts are that these women/girls came to the house to attack her, I want part of the justice for Ma'kiah is making sure that they face whatever charge. Like, why are you at her house trying to fight her? And it's so interesting how aggressors allegedly can become like victims. And so I hope that there's an investigation on that part. And because this didn't have to happen, it was avoidable. If they weren't at her house, Ma'kiah would potentially still be alive right now. Yeah.
And that's why they more than likely, if these facts are accurate, or not facts, but these allegations are accurate, I think they would face some criminal charges, probably on the lines of manslaughter, because they kind of provoked this entire situation, which led to her ultimate death. The officer, doubt anything's going to happen to him because, we know how the law works, and the situation just largely moves in his favor. So I have no expectations of any kind of criminal charges being placed there. Maybe civil charges. There may be some things argued that, the family can get some money for what transpired. But yeah, I don't think anything's going to happen to the officer.
Agreed. Because I've seen a lot of just like, when it comes to the use of deadly force, it can be done to protect yourself or the life of, others. So I don't expect any charges there either. Yeah.
It's something to keep our eyes on, law enforcement, just again, same day as the George Floyd, case being over, Derek Chauvin case being over, we see a new one opening with Ma'kiah. And even I know last week too, there was this case, I don't know if you saw with the bike staff, with the black kids and the bikes.
Where the police officers arrested somebody for not having Yeah, you can finish explaining, but yeah.
Yeah, they arrested. So long story short, and this is actually Perth Amboy, New Jersey. So it is literally where I grew up. I grew up in a town just south of it called Overbridge. And so it's literally 5-10 minutes from my house where I grew up. So I'm very familiar with the area where this video took place. And Perth Amboy has a population pretty much minority dominated, a lot of Latinx and Black folks. And so long story short, these kids who were from a neighboring town were riding their bikes through Perth Amboy. Perth Amboy has a law that says all Perth Amboy residents, if you buy a bike, any kind of bike, recreational use, cycling, whatever, that you have to get it registered with the town police, and then they give you a license for your bike, and then you put a tag on your bike. So these kids, not being from Perth Amboy, riding their bikes. And they're doing what kids do. They were like swerving on the street through the lanes. And one officer stopped them and said, hey, pretty much y'all are being dumb. Cut this out. Kind of gave them a warning. Wasn't tripping too much. And then this other officer came, I guess his backup or whatever, and then she was on a major power trip. And that's where it kind of escalated. Then she was asking for the bikes, and the kids were like, I'm not giving you my bike. We're not from here. Because she was like, you don't have a license. You ignored me. And then 5 other cop cars came, and they wind up taking the bikes from these kids, and then also arresting one of the young men as well, right? And so I know that went viral because everybody's like, now we can't even ride bikes in peace or be kids without law enforcement harassing these individuals. What's good is that the county is investigating this police precinct further for any other misdoings or wrongdoings they've saw, but clearly this is not a good light shed on them. And the fact that the county's investigating means that somebody's going to get into some trouble. Or if anything, all her colleagues are about to be very upset because they're probably like, yo, you could have just let them go.
Yeah.
It's not that serious. Now we're on the news. It's viral. We're getting investigated because you went to power trip in that moment.
Yeah. It's like people have to let go of that ego. I know you want to be right. I know you want to flex your muscle, but you're doing it against some kids. Like, is it really that serious? Is it really that serious?
It's not.
Child, I thank the Lord we ain't had no laws like that when I was a kid, because all we did every day, all day, every summer was ride our bikes through the neighborhood. Like, literally, we would be on bikes all day, every day. And so I'm happy we didn't have those crazy laws. I mean, we probably need some helmets because we didn't have those. So thank you for, the grace of God. I am here today without any major injuries. So.
Yeah. And it's like the way we enforce laws, is that the best law? If my guess is these laws came about because there's probably a lot of bike theft that happens in this area. And so they're like, oh, well, let's make people have these licenses to see if, you have a bike or we can question you. But all it does is just give the police more reasons to stop folks. I think there should be other approaches to then because that's silly to me. Like if I have a child there, we have to get their bike registered and get a license tag. It's just too much. And so I'm sure that law is going to be, revoked at some point as well. Now that it's on the headlines and people find that very unfavorable. But, it's the life we live. Like you said, we all ride bikes. That's what kids do. Even if they were being silly or taking risk, what teenagers do. I think the first officer, I give him props because he was doing what we expected. Hey, stop them. Tell them stop before you kill yourselves because you're being silly. And, get on the right side of the street and be safe is all it's about. But the other officer came and turned into something that really didn't need to be.
Yeah. Speaking of things that didn't have to happen, did you hear about the latest shooting of an unarmed Black man in Virginia?
No, I think I missed this one.
Isaiah Brown, yes. It just happened this week. I'm not sure if it happened on Friday. But what's crazy is that I think he called the police from a gas station because I think that he had a car issue. He was safely transported home. And I think about 50 minutes later, there was some type of domestic disturbance. Isaiah was actually outside on a cordless phone with the 911 dispatch as police came, and they mistook the cordless phone for a gun and shot him.
Oh, wow.
And he's now in the hospital. He is alive. I think he might be in the ICU, but I think he's going to be or survive. Of course, he won't be okay, but I think he's going to survive.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know. I think I really appreciate the law in California. I know we discussed this before, but I feel like when we talk about federal changes, that's something that needs to be a standard, and that's of them, not using reasonable suspicion, but it has to be kind of verified for them to use that kind of force, because we see time and time again that these law enforcement officers, somebody make a move, somebody try to get their wallet or something, and they mistake it as a gun or think they have a gun and they shoot them, where it needs to be hardcore evidence that this person has a gun, right? And I think it'll cause them to pause a little longer. even ask a question, like, is that a gun? Whatever, and get a response first, before you just start shooting. I think we need that hesitation because this is like, luckily, fortunately, he's still alive. But again, it's going to have been another super tragic event because of a mistake by law enforcement of not properly assessing the situation and moving so frantically.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But like I said, yeah, another tragic event with the law enforcement and how they operate so quickly and are so quick just to use the guns on Black bodies. And that's the thing too, like even we talked about Ma'kiah and these situations, it's hard for me not to believe that if these victims were white, they wouldn't be victims, right? I think police are just more likely to pause, to assess, to really see what's going on or try other measures before just killing someone. So I think, I don't know. We have to figure out these biases that come into play or something to get law enforcement to not use their weapons in these first encounters.
Yeah. And what's really crazy is that based on the footage or that was released, like body cam audio and stuff, the officer thought that he had a gun to his own head. So if you thought that this person was about to kill themselves, like you didn't even think the gun was pointed at you. You thought it was pointed to his head.
Yeah, that's also weird. Yeah, that's also weird. Why do you shoot if that was the case, then why are you like shooting this person? Especially some people do, suicide by cops. And so, I don't know. That's also a weird like rationale to do that. If they were thinking about harming themselves, but then you decide to harm them.
Yeah, because it's like when people do suicide by cops, sometimes like they're aiming at the police to get them. Like if this person did have a gun to their head, then they needed help, not to be shot. And there are reports that he was shot like 10 times. Wow. Don't know how true that is, but I think that was from medical records.
Yeah, wow. Wow, that's wild. Be careful out here, folks. Like you said, I mean, all of these stories, I mean, one have been within the past a week or two, but we've seen a bunch in the past month or so. And this is just, as we said before, a case of folks going back out again, outside, weather, vaccines, whatever it is, reconnecting. And I don't know, it's just a higher rate of incidences, and we just need to be on our P's and Q's. Try to be as safe as possible. Stay close to those loved ones. Try not to venture out too much in areas unknown, the spaces unknown, because those little details, now it's sad to say, can be what matters in these situations.
And I think the scariest part about this is that in some of these instances, it's people calling the police because they think that they're going to be helpful. Because I know you may have heard of like the shooting that occurred at a school of a young Black boy who was in a bathroom. He did have a gun with him. But recent details that came out is that the boy had gotten into a physical fight with his girlfriend. The girlfriend's mom tried to reach his mom, but couldn't. The girl, I think, was missing some hair. She had like bruises and stuff. So her mom decided to call the police, to get that taken care of. And she stated like she didn't think it would end in him being like killed. And I would think that that's a circumstance where you would call the police, where you would feel like, okay, this is a physical altercation between a guy and a girl, and she's injured, and like but I don't know if people are going to feel safe calling the police.
Yeah. I remember I saw not maybe a couple weeks ago this viral clip that was happening of it was a Black woman and Black man, and I think they have a food truck or something like that. And they were sitting down with some white guy talking. It was a business meeting. I think that he was talking about he was going to like take their business or let them buy this place so that they can use to expand their business or whatever. And the Black woman was there talking to him, and there's like security footage of this. And then he started acting real weird. The conversations he was the conversation he was bringing up, talking about Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter, and had like a All Lives Matter shirt on or something like that. And so she had like called or texted her husband and said, "Hey, this dude is like being real weird. Can you come back to make sure, nothing crazy happens? The husband came back and they were talking, and he started to get kind of more agitated, the white guy. And then the white guy literally was about to pull out a gun to try to shoot them. The husband wrestles him down to the ground, and kind of pins him down. And then his wife wanted to call the cops. And then she said that she was hesitant to call the police in this situation because she understood that she felt the police may view her husband as the threat. And she said even when she called the police, she kept reiterating to them what was happening via dispatch. And when the law enforcement came, she was in the front door and she was telling them, my husband is black. My husband, do not shoot my husband. Please do not shoot my husband. Please do not shoot my husband. And then they came in and, of course, peacefully, handled the situation and got the guy. But it's like, even in those extreme situations, she was still very much conscious, like, man, should I call the police? Because they may end up killing my husband who is here to protect me. And It's so sad that we have to think that way, like you said, because we want the police to help us. But time and time again, they view us as the threat. Right.
Yep. I saw that and was thinking like, wow, you're in a life and death situation and you don't, even feel safe calling for, the system that's supposed to save you.
So sad. So sad. Yeah. But it sucks that we have to, as Black folks, live in this way, right? Where we can't ever really feel safe or, relaxed, kind of always in the state of like constant being alertness and understanding like our position and what we're doing, because any of these actions, one wrong decision can mean life or death for us and not for other folks. And it's like, yeah, we got to do better so that we can. And I wonder too how much of this, and I'm sure there's studies, and I'm sure, I'm just not knowledgeable about it, but what kind of effect this is having on Black folks in general, of living in this kind of like high alert state on a constant basis related to stress, related to anxiety, of just not really being able to let your guard down, especially when we're in public spaces and doing things. I know that just kind of takes a toll on us long term. And I would love to hear more about that or see more about that, because it's something I think we also have to figure out ways to be more conscious of ourselves for our mental state. But it sucks. We shouldn't have to be this way, but it's kind of how we're living right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did you have anything else around this topic? I have a couple other things that I think are worth sharing.
No.
Okay. On the lines of some politics, I know that another headline was that the Senate recently overwhelmingly voted to pass an anti-Asian hate crimes bill. Senate voted 94-1 to pass a bill that denounced discrimination against Asian communities within the U.S. And creating a new position in the Justice Department to expedite reviews of COVID-related hate crimes. The bill would also direct the Departments of Justice and Health and Human Services to raise awareness of hate crimes during the pandemic and work with agencies to establish online reporting systems as of late. So all of this, I'm just getting this from CNN as well, has been reported this past week is a major victory because we saw the Stop Asian Hate happening. And we see that Congress and the Senate move very quickly to combat this. What are your thoughts on this, Daph?
I think it's a really good thing. I heard about that as well. And it was, I guess, surprising because it was the Senate. Mm-hmm. And, I know the House has been moving and doing things that should happen. So I was actually surprised that it was the Senate. But I'm happy that it's happening. I don't know if we ever discussed this statistic before, but, did you know that like 90% of anti-Asian incidents in 2020 were perpetuated by white people?
No, I did not know that.
Yes.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And 5% Black people. And, I'm guessing the other 5% is other. But yeah, I recently came across that statistic, which is crazy.
No, it does not surprise me. Not one bit. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm happy that this passed. Very surprised like you to see 94-1 in the Senate of all places. Which also, sadly to say, has me my antennas up a little more. Like what's going on here? That this meant very little resistance in a situation where it's almost split directly half and half. So I don't know. I don't know if there's anything behind that, if it's just symbolic, if there's going to actually be actions, which hopefully it will be. But that just throws up some red flags too. Whenever I see a bunch of Republicans just fully on board or something, especially in this kind of current state where everything's so politicized and polarized, that to see almost unanimous support was like, okay, what's up with this? So maybe I'll look into it. Maybe it'll come out in the future. Maybe there's nothing there, and for some reason, folks just voted out of the kindness of their heart. But that's just tough to believe where our politics is set up. And we know if this was something, the sad truth is we know if there's something related to Black folks or Black Lives Matters or Black Lives, period, we would not have seen this kind of unanimous support. So, being a Black person, it does raise a little bit of red flags to me, like what just happened here, that this was so easily passed. And I would expect to see this with other similar policies for other marginalized groups or Black people in particular down the line. Right now, we kind of have this precedent, like, I didn't have an issue with this. So now when we ask for certain things, there definitely should not be an issue. We should see this 94-1 support as well. Although I don't think it'll be the truth, but we'll see.
Yeah, I was about to say, Mitch McConnell's wife is Asian American. I don't want to say that that's one of the reasons, but I could see like he has a vested interest in like if there's hate against his wife's ethno-racial group, maybe that's an incentive. I don't know.
I'm sure it is. And I wouldn't even say that's a maybe, right? I think that definitely, he has a strong, understanding probably more than other racialized groups because his wife is of that ethnic group. So I could definitely see, at least for him personally, that influencing him. And we know he has a lot of clout within his party. And so maybe that was one of the reasons. Yeah, that's a good observation.
Yeah, I think she was born in Taiwan. So, yeah. But you know what? If it is, it just goes to show like having connections and personal relationships with people from a different ethno-racial group can shape the way you think about and view issues. And it's, again, I don't want to say that's the reason, but if it is the reason, it just goes to show that like, okay, we there might be some bridges that they need to make with trying to understand the perspectives and experiences, particularly of like Black and Latinx people.
Yeah, I think it's a factor. At least for Mitch McConnell, we can be safe to say that that he had to consider that and think about it. And there's I'm not gonna say no way, but that'd be tough to vote against that bill and then go back home to your wife and be like, really, what's going on here? So yeah, good observation. I think that stuff does matter. A couple other things with some related like bills being passed. I know, well, it's not a bill that has been passed, but Biden is really pushing to raise the taxes on the richest Americans. Pretty much anyone making over $400,000 a year. So these are people who make $400,000 a year or less will not be, products of this or will not be attacked, I guess, with this new tax bill, which is 90% of Americans make less than $400,000 a year. So it's really just raising the tax of the top 10%, which many folks have been asking. I'm in agreement with it. He says supposed to raise from 37% to almost 40% for those households making over $400,000 a year. Something to keep our eyes on. Again, I'm not weary. I think it's something that should happen. But then I'm always weary of how the government uses said money. If they get more tax dollars in and more revenue, then it's like, okay, where do you plan on putting it is the big question.
Yeah, that is a very big question that I, want to know, because if it's just going to more defense stuff, if it's like, child, because honestly, like, I do think taxes need to be raised. But the way we spend money also needs to be changed. When certain, social services, if you look at it from a pie chart perspective, get just like a small little sliver, not even like a piece of a pie that you would even cut yourself if it was a real pie. And so it's just kind of like I do want to see taxes spent in a different way.
Yeah, definitely less in a defense fund. I understand why that's important, but we've been duped for too long. Like, we're not at wars. We're not, it's not, nobody's really coming to America geographically. It's just tough. And I think it's time to take a little money and put it elsewhere where it's needed, like education and people who are poor and other things, right? So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. I know folks have been up in arms about this one recent bill, and I just want to mention this because it's kind of a wild law, but Oklahoma passed a law that grants immunity to drivers who run over protesters. In this law, it says the bill that grants immunity to drivers who unintentionally injure or kill protesters who are fleeing from a riot, according to the Oklahoma state legislator. The bill also makes it a misdemeanor to obstruct a public street during a protest, which is punishable up to 1 year in prison or a $5,000 fine. And so this bill is a response to the recent protests we've been seeing due to a lot of the issues we discussed earlier of policing, et cetera, and a whole wide variety of other issues. But, some states are trying to push back by making it, one, illegal for folks to harm these protesters, and two, make it a crime to protest. So these are things just to keep our eyes on. I know, ain't a lot of folks in Oklahoma, but I would say sometimes these things set, things in motion for other states to adopt similar policies.
Yeah, states is like, yeah, we'll let you off for running over protesters.
Yeah, see. Wow. Things to keep an eye on. But yeah, nobody should, running over somebody is just something shouldn't be allowed.
It shouldn't.
And one last thing that I saw was that now there's this law, or I don't know if it's a law or a bill, but it says all homeless people living on Los Angeles Skid Row must be offered housing by the fall. And this was actually put into place by a federal judge. So this is interesting as well. Now the city is responsible for providing housing because they have a big homeless crisis in Los Angeles and also places like San Francisco as well, in that state in particular. And so now seeing that the judge saying, hey, you guys got to take responsibility for making sure these people find homes, is interesting. And I wonder if that sets a precedent for other places as well to do the same kind of thing, especially places that have a large homeless population. I feel like the city has a responsibility of safety and the well-being of these kind of folk.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I also saw a very interesting comment that questioned the extent to which this was also like being done for like self-interested reasons, in a sense that I've read, and of course I haven't talked to any of these people, but that many of the people that live on Skid Row actually don't want to leave, but there's a vested interest, particularly by like investors and et cetera, to remove these people because that's prime real estate.
It's a good old case of interest convergence, huh?
Yeah, potentially. And I guess that's what we'll see. Like, if the city pushes back against this, then like, okay, maybe that's just rumors or chatter. But when have we ever seen anything like this? I think they have to put like $1 billion in escrow to like help. And I think the plan is like women and unaccompanied children, then families, then everyone else, in terms of like having to help with that temporary or permanent housing, which I think is good policy. I wouldn't want to leave people like sleeping in tents just for the purposes of like saying like, this is prime, or we shouldn't give up prime land. So I don't know. That's yeah.
No, I think I would say that, makes sense. Again, the policy, and I'm sure there are folks who've been fighting for this on the grassroots line of this kind of policy. But yeah, we know in this country, when there's an alignment between what maybe activists want and what capitalists want, more often than not, we're going to reach that goal. And so I wouldn't be surprised because that if it's a lot of land there that hasn't seen a lot of business, or there's like abandoned buildings, and of course, it's not going to be attractive to buyers or whomever because of the homeless population. Cleaning up those streets, I can see, for any kind of real estate investor is a gold mine. So yeah, something to keep an eye on for sure. That's interesting. That's an interesting take. Never know. That's why we gotta read the fine print, people. We gotta read the fine print of what it really is, not just believe or just accept, these policies for what they are. Although they may be good, just look a little deeper to see if they're full of integrity of the things we want to see or the reasons why.
Yeah. But speaking of California, did you hear about your girl about to run for governor?
Yes.
Caitlyn Jenner. Oh my God.
Oh man. Yeah. I heard that. I don't know. I mean, I don't live in California, so I don't know what the buzz is. Am I not surprised? They had Arnold Schwarzenegger as president. I mean, not president, as governor as well. So it's Hollywood. It's not uncommon, I guess, to see these kind of things. I think once a wrestler was governor too, or running for governor too. Another I can't remember his name as well. So it's kind of Cali for you. Hopefully, because Caitlyn, I think, was a large supporter of a lot of Trump policies.
Yeah.
That is not someone who I would want to see running that state, because we've always given them praise for a lot of the progressive policies they've been putting in place. And so with Caitlyn's political history, I doubt we'll see those kind of things continue to happen. And so I'm already against it. But, surprised a little bit to see that, she's running.
Yeah. And what's interesting is you mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was actually elected for the same, like, I guess, loophole that Caitlyn Jenner is trying to get in. So, like, the governor was recalled when Arnold Schwarzenegger actually ended up getting into office. And so the only, the way that Caitlyn Jenner would make her way in is if Gavin Newsom is recalled, which it seems that movement is gaining some momentum. So it seems like these Republican governors like slip their way in when people are like dissatisfied with the Democrat in office.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, something to keep an eye on. Yeah, that's what I gotta say about that. That's Caitlyn's not not that I have a vote in California, but she wouldn't get my vote for that position. But yeah. Hollywood, LA, celebrity culture, California, that's what they built off of.
Yeah, Hollyweird. We're going to be looking for y'all, California, to say no. You guys are supposed to be the progressive voice of our nation. Yes. Let's not do that. And it has everything to do with her politics and the fact that up until I think Trump maybe did something that was anti-trans, did Caitlyn Jenner have something bad to say or denounce Trump? So,
Yep. So hopefully, her closeness to Trump will not allow her to gain this position and this power. So yeah, we'll see. How that works.
We don't like Kardashians anyway. Although Caitlyn is a Jenner.
Still too close to that family for me. Still too close for that family to me. Seeing them up around in the governor's office and having a whole new show when I'm excited they're finally getting off the air. Catching them out.
He'll make Kim Kardashian attorney general or something.
Oh my God.
Although I think most of that stuff is elected, but it's just funny to see like.
Yeah. That'll open the door for Kardashians into politics, and that'd be a scary world. I'm not gonna lie. Be a scary world. Okay. Anything else? I guess we, gotta say RIP to DMX as well. A major staple for the culture, especially hip hop culture. Passed away. It looks like a mix of drug use and COVID seems to be what's been coming out allegedly about causes for his death. But he had his going home ceremony this past weekend at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, where the Rough Riders were there, and there was choirs and Eve and Swiss Beats and all these folks. Giving out their eulogies and speaking high praises about DMX, who was a legend in the field of hip hop. I know, everyone knows at least a couple of his songs, whether they know it from just soundtracks and stuff like that, or use them for working out, things like that. His songs were great for those kind of things, and just getting you amped and ready for whatever you're trying to do. So rest in peace, DMX.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace. I haven't got a chance to look at it, but I did save where, I guess his daughter was freestyling and people were saying she's really good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I didn't see that. So I'm about to check that out, too.
Yeah.
I think I saw a clip, but I didn't actually see the video. I was tuning in and out because I was doing other things.
Yeah.
Not like watching it on and off, So I missed that part. But yeah, anything else?
No, nothing major. Just, I feel like April has been a roller coaster month. Lots of emotions, not always positive. And, as we close out this month, just encouraging people to find ways to take care of themselves. Get your vaccine so that you can maybe do some traveling, see some family. Yeah.
Let's look forward to a more positive month of May. Weather's breaking, go on some walks, get outdoors, drive around, just do something and refresh and relax because, we all deserve it. It's been rough year for everyone, and then especially this month and a half for, marginalized communities and Black folks in particular. We've been just dealing with a lot via the media and things like that. So yeah, like Daph said, let's figure out a way to protect your peace. Protect your peace.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, good episode. I love these episodes because we always can just dive deeper into some things and get some things off our chest. And it's always good. We just, some of y'all tune in because you like to hear from us too. And we always want to make sure we provide that for you all. So next week we'll get back to our regularly scheduled program. We got some really good guests lined up for next month. So be on the lookout for that, those announcements, and those episodes. Outside of that, you can always follow us on social media at BHD Podcast is our social media handle. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our website, blackandhollydangerous.com, has all our latest content. So if you want to just follow what we're doing there, please visit that website and check out all the offerings and content we have there. And then you can email us, bhdpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, just want to say hello, please do that. We always love when we hear from you all. And then if you would like to support, you can financially support. You can visit our Patreon, patreon.com/BHD Podcast, and invest whatever you would like. Look at our 4 tiers. And that really helps us grow the podcast financially, financial contributions. We have a lot of things we plan on doing in the near future. So anything that you can give will be immense help. And if you don't feel like donating financially, please, by all means, go and review and rate us on iTunes. That helps us out with the algorithm so more people can find us. We'll pop up more frequently by the more people who give us these review and ratings. So please do that. And after you do all that, share us with your friends, share us with your family, and share us with your enemies. And as always, continue to be the oppressor's worst fear.
If you're interested in continuing this and other conversations, visit our website, blackandhollydangerous.com, to subscribe to our email list, suggest topics, and participate in our discussion forums.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at BHD Podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe and rate our podcast on your favorite platform. And as always, continue to be the oppressor's worst fear.